My name is Mark Porteus, often known as the Soul Connector. That's a name given to me by my mentor, Alan Davidson. I help connect people to who they are at soul level. I help to connect people to their soul purpose, a big part of my work, and then finally to connect people to their soul tribe, their perfect customers, their dream team, and their affiliate ambassadors, as I call them, the people that are there to help spread their message out to the world. Um, First and foremost, I'm a husband of over 20 years. It'll be our 23rd anniversary, and a father of teenage twins, a son, Zen, and my daughter, Eden. And that's incredibly relevant because to me, the purpose of my work is not just about making an impact out in the world, but how the work that I do can make me a better person. I'm sure you've heard that entrepreneurship is like one of the best paths for personal growth and personal transformation. The other two for me are marriage or relationship, whatever that might be, and parenthood. And so those three things, being able to bring those together into my business, like that's my main focus now for 2025. People see that in me doing that, but it's not always as balanced as it looks. Like, they'll see the trips to Canada and to the Bahamas or the cruises and stuff, and uh, sometimes still Monday through Friday, as we were just talking about, I'm still thinking about work and it's 8 o'clock and Renee is punched out and the kids just need to play, and they want to play with dad or ask questions. So being able to have an integrated, you can't have a balanced life. I don't think it'll ever be equally balanced, but to have an integrated life where it's family, friends, self-care is one of the first things that gets sacrificed on the path of entrepreneurship, but learning how to really be able to put the priorities first. And I think sometimes as a beginner, that's one of the biggest challenges is knowing what to prioritize. And we think it's more doing, 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 and you got to get this done. And once we get there, then we can take care of ourselves. Then we can spend time with the people we love. And um, I have found that it works quite the reverse when you build your business on a foundation of the boundaries of how you want to live. All the rest will get figured out, but you'll do it in a way that feels good instead of you get there and you feel burned out and want to find something else to do.
Hmm. Hmm. So were you always entrepreneurial, Mark? How did you take those steps in the beginning that went from, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be a father, I want to be a partner, into like how did that start?
It's funny because had many conversations about how my business started, but when you pose it as have you always been an entrepreneur, I think about one of the first webinars I did where I talked about my very first entrepreneurship. I was 11. My father's neighbor friend said, "Hey, we've got seaweed in the pond. I'll pay you $10 an hour." And I think minimum wage back then was like 3.75 to clean out the weeds. And I was like, where's the rake? And then I started selling to all his neighbors. I created my own business cards. I still have business cards from when I was 11 years old. And the
No way.
flyer, I had a flyer that I wrote up about, yeah. So that was the first occasion. And it was because I was poor because I was raised by a single mom. And so if I wanted new shoes or if I wanted a bike or if I wanted anything extra, I had to come up with funds to do it. So I didn't create money to save it and to build wealth, but I was like, oh, I need something. I
Mm,
can create cash. So that was kind of when it first started. And then I have a whole thing where I look at I call it the monetize your mission map, and it's looking at like your past experiences and it's where your wisdom, your knowledge, what you love to do, your passion, what people want from you, and what people will pay from, where those
mhm,
things meet. And when I look back at my life, I look at it balancing between things like being a ski instructor and working at a ski area to do things that were fun to then going to working at like a selling board stocks to stockbrokers to make money so that then I could
mhm,
have fun. And it was that kind of balancing between these things and realizing I just want to do something I enjoy doing that gives me meaning, but also can generate enough wealth that I can have real freedom and not be in bondage to my business or to a boss.
Hmm. Hmm. So did you meet with somebody or find a mentor that helped you kind of find the center of those things? It sounds like you just kind of bounced around, right? And say, okay, money, great. Passion, not so much. Was there somebody that you met that just helped you pull it all together, or was this something that happened organically?
There've been a lot of mentors. So really what happened back in 1992, I was working for Greenpeace International. I was 22 years old, and my girlfriend at the time brought me to my very first metaphysical bookstore. We walked in, and I read a bumper sticker that changed my life. And it was that we are not human beings having spiritual experiences, we're spiritual beings having human experiences.
Mm,
When I read that quote, it made a lot of things I've been writing about make sense. And so I wanted to write a book called The Human Experience. I went home and told my dad, who had written three books, that I wanted to write a book. And I thought he was going to be so proud of me for being following in his footsteps. I wanted to write a book. And his first response to me was, well, don't expect to make any money writing a book. You need to have a business, not just a book. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for the encouragement. And I said, okay, well, what can I do as a business so that I can fund writing the book? Rather than like, how do I make money writing the book? I'm like, how can I make money so that I don't have to make money on the book?
mm,
I ended up selling souvenirs at amusement parks. A friend of mine had been doing it off the beach. It was selling hair wraps, string tied to hair with beads at the bottom that he had learned at the Grateful Dead concerts that he had been following around and was like living out of his van when a Disney executive came up to him and said, hey, my daughter's been doing this waiting for 30 minutes for a hair wrap. And he said, hey, I'm moving as fast as I can. And he said, I know, I see that. Come to Disney and do it. And within 2 years of working at Disney, he made his first $1 million. And I was like, oh, I can do what he's doing and I can fund what I really want to be doing. So I created a business outside of Disney here in Orlando, selling souvenirs, tattoos, hair wraps, all kinds of different things in
mm,
Ohio. In California, I had 100 employees around the country helping grow a business to support what I really wanted to do, what my real passion and what I felt my purpose was, because I didn't think I could make money on it. And after 5 years of doing that, I had one person that was in Ohio that was a teenager, 19 years old, was managing all of our hours for all of our 50 employees that were just at Kings Island, all of
mm,
our inventory and everything else. And she has been managing my life ever since. I ended up marrying her 3 years later in Florida. And um, after 5 years with that business, realizing I was doing that to create a business, I sold that business and then went into sales for Time Warner at the time, figuring, okay, within a couple of years, I'll have my book written, which I didn't get done in 5 years of owning my own business. And then I can figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I can take my father's advice and build a business around the book. I don't know how to do a book around spirituality or how to make money on that, but
sure.
at least let me get it out there. Um, and 2 years turned into 10 years. My wife was pregnant with twins. I had not added any more to my book. I had not made any progress on it. I'd gotten very lazy, making lots of money in sales, getting sent to Jamaica, the Bahamas, Bermuda. Every year I'd go on these trips, uh, sometimes known as the golden handcuffs, and
Mm,
realized that if I didn't make a change, that I would teach my children the deferred lifestyle of putting off purpose and passion for
mm,
safety and security.
mm,
And that chokes me up now thinking about like how that it created a pit in my stomach. Like it had been 10 years that I had been waiting to write a book, but I didn't feel like I had the money to do it. And I was like, oh, I don't want to teach my children. I don't want 10 more years to go by. And so by the time they were born, I had the book done. And by the time they were a year old, my wife helped me to self-publish through Amazon, had something called Create Space back then in 1990 or to 2021,
mm,
2001, I'm sorry. 2011 is when our kids were born, 2011. And then she said, now what? You've always wanted to write this book. It's been 18 years. Now what do you want to do with it? And she was the one who suggested life coaching. And I
Hmm.
had never met anybody who was a life coach. I didn't know anybody who had ever hired a life coach. I'd only seen them on TV, and I thought it was like the new form of therapy for rich housewives. Like only rich housewives have life coaches. Who else can afford a life coach? Who else can see the value of a life coach? And so we looked it up online, and in 2011, the average life coach was making less than 20,000 a year. Now I think they're making 30,000 a year, whopping huge increase over 10 years. And we said, well, obviously that's not going to work. What else can we do? And my wife looked at me and she said, well, that you were looking up what the average life coach makes. You've never been an average sales rep. Why don't you look at see what the top people are making and let's evaluate that. And we saw, the Tony Robbins making 8 figures, lots of other coaches making 7 figures, and 100 coaches saying, if you do exactly what I did, we'll show you how to make 6 figures in your very first year as a coach.
Hmm.
And it took me 5 years to learn that that was the worst advice that I ever got, was that if you do exactly what I did, you'll get the same results,
Hmm.
because nobody gets the same results as anybody because no two people are the same. But that was kind of what was introduced. And then my very first coach said, well, what is your niche going to be? And I didn't even know what the word niche meant at the time. When he explained it to me, I said I wanted to be a spiritual coach. And he laughed and said, well, you're not going to make any money as a spiritual coach. He said, you can pick any niche you want, but it has to be one of these three. You can pick health, wealth, or love, and then you can sneak in spirituality like medicine and the dog food.
Hmm.
And he had been taught that by his coach, who had been taught it by his coach. And those are the big three things that people invest in. But since then, I've learned that they also invest one in spirituality, meaningful experiences. People invest in Spartan experiences, something that is really meaningful that changes their life. But spirituality and especially meaning and money. It's not just money, but now more than ever, people want more than just money. They want money and meaning together. So
Hmm.
these were the lessons that I got early on, and it took years to unlearn what I had learned and realize that the main thing that people invest in is authenticity.
Hmm. Hmm. So, was there a moment in time, like a sliding door moment, where you said, "Hey, I'm getting rid of these handcuffs, these golden handcuffs, and I'm going 100% into coaching"?
Yeah, it's funny because it bridges back to the original question that I don't think I quite answered around, did I have a mentor? I told you I hired this guy as my coach, and that was just to get a certification. It was like a 90-day coaching certification to see if that was really what I wanted to do. And then I hired another coach for a year-long program, but still was working in my other job. And it wasn't until I finished my book, I went and talked to my the store where I'd first read that quote that we're not human beings having spiritual experiences. And I told my mentor, who was 62 when I met her, she's now 80 years old. And I said, I'm going to quit my corporate job. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to become a coach and I'm going to change the world. And she looked me in the eyes and said, oh, honey, you're not ready for that yet. You still need that job. That job needs you and your family needs that job. And I thought she was talking about scarcity, of like, why would you give up this 6 figure job to go out there and try to create a career as a coach? And it took me a while to realize I almost broke down there. I was like, oh my God, that's depressing. This is what I've wanted to do forever. Now I got to keep my hourly sales job. But I realized that the fastest way to get where I wanted to be was to understand why I was exactly where I needed to be. And so there were things I needed to learn in the job before starting the other things, learning about marketing, learning about like what is coaching, the whole idea of understanding what people want and where they are and the gap and how to understand all of those pieces. So I spent a year working on that, and still was into the handcuffs. And when I finally made the leap, I still hadn't really figured it out. I still wasn't making the income. It wasn't until actually my very first event was around that time in 2013, where I met who was eventually my mentor that called me the Soul Connector. I went to a 3-day live event called Wealthy Visionary Conference with Maya Marsha Weeder, and the person that signed me in, one of the volunteers. I didn't realize he was kind of the mastermind behind her whole launch, and had done over 100 launches for some of the top names in the coaching industry. but I just remember like the warmth of the embrace of coming into that community. And then I went to another event and saw him there, and then learned more about the industry from him. And he kind of again took me under his wing, and um, I remember trying to hire him because he had done JV launches, which is really what I'm doing now. My focus is, and saying, hey, how much is it to hire you so that we could do a JV launch? Because I was coming out of my corporate thing. I had money saved up. I wanted to grow fast. And he said, well, what results do you have? What are your case studies? I said, case studies? I just got started. I don't have any results yet. And he said, well, you need to go get results first. You need to go find people and find out how you can help them, get case studies of how you help them, and then I can help you to reach more people, but go get the results first. And I think that's one of the hesitations that a lot of people have in, especially in coaching, is like, I'm not worthy. Like, how can I coach people when I am still screwed up? I'm not perfect yet. How can I be a coach? And there's something that we're all really good at. And when we can go out and find out what that is, and we can start finding, even if it's our family, like a nutritionist all the time, they want to lose weight, and then they lose weight, and then their family's like, how did you do that? And if you can help your cousin, your sister, or somebody else in your family, that's your first case study. And then when you say, hey, I did this for this person, I can do it for you, that's your second case study. And when you can get three case studies, you can say, here's who they were before. And not only did they lose weight, but now they're playing in the park with their kids. Now they're having the life that they want to have. It's not about the weight. It's about what they can get, who they can be on the other side. And so that's the first thing that I had to learn was that you actually have to go out and start selling yourself and start um, being the coach that you want to be before you figure out all the marketing and the branding and the strategy. All the other stuff is important, um, but it's really having the courage to go out there and start seeing how you can serve people first.
We talk about this all the time with new coaches, Mark, and I'm so grateful that you're hitting on this. I think with the most authentic coaches, they feel a little bit of and well-deserved weirdness about saying I helped someone get these results because they're like the client did all the work. They did all the transformation. I just showed up, but like there is something that you were able to contribute. I think one of the biggest pieces of having a coach is blind spots. Even if your coach is not a super accomplished whatever you're trying to be, they can hear you speak about it and say, hold on a second, I'm hearing some weird stuff going on in your brain. I'm hearing some stories. I'm hearing some, logical fallacies here. I'm hearing some scarcity mindset. I'm hearing these things which you didn't hear when you were saying it. And
Mhm.
then, I think one of the most effective, one of the most high compliments I've seen people give is I was at the point where I heard my coach's voice in my head, stopping me from doing something or encouraging me to do something. Like that's when it's been really effective. And I think coaches are a bit hesitant to take credit for having helped people get the results.
The irony of that is you're absolutely right, but we're so eager to take all of the blame for when our clients don't get
Mm,
success.
Ooh,
As soon as they
mm,
fail, it's like, oh, what did I do wrong?
that's
But when
juicy.
they're hugely successful, it's all of them.
right. That's a great point. Yeah, it's where can I take responsibility for the bad impact versus and anytime that you have a client who's not a good fit, you look at yourself instead of, oh, that isn't my soul tribe. That's not my ideal client. It's especially as a new coach where you're basically still narrowing down who is your ideal client and then you have to do the work of working with people who aren't your ideal client to really get it. No matter how much planning road mapping, all that stuff. Until you work with someone who isn't your ideal client, you really don't know in your soul, this is it.
So true, so true. And it's funny because you said something I don't want it to go amiss. You said the most authentic coaches. Because if you've been around the industry for a while, we know there are coaches that really don't care about your results. There are coaches that just care about selling more coaching programs, and that really taints it for everybody else. It makes it harder for us to enroll people. But like you said, when you're authentic, that those are the ones that have imposter syndrome. Those are the ones that, and it's because of us working through our imposter syndrome and working through our own limiting beliefs with a coach that we can become a great coach and being able to help point those things out to other people. So I love that you brought that up.
Mm.
Hmm. So, Mark, you can you walk me through and transition a little bit? Walk me through the first product or the first service or the first coaching program that you launched. How did you build it?
It's very interesting because I was thinking of two things simultaneously, but before I ever had a coaching program, the very first thing I did was a mastermind, which is still, I run a mastermind now. That's the main thing I love doing. That's the main way that I'm of service to other coaches. But my very first mastermind was in 2011. Before I'd been in a coaching program, I had all these other, or I was in a coaching program, but I was with all of a sudden these other coaches that I knew were I was coming into my life. And so we just literally created a peer group, and it was 10 of us. Um, we didn't know, they didn't have any specific charter or vision or anything else. We were just like the blind leading the blind in this new industry. And um, after a year, we were kind of, sharing our resources of here's what I'm learning from this guru and this and in that time, I learned, what we all needed to have, and ended up offering my first one was a group coaching. I mean, a mastermind program, but it was going over those elements, and it was a little bit of content, but really based on where everybody was in messaging, in marketing, and mindset, those pieces. But my very first client came to me while I was running the free one, and it really always stands out to me because I remember it was $350 a month was what this person was paying for one-on-one coaching, weekly coaching. And she was coaching me on how to be a better coach by saying, "Oh, what is my homework? What are my notes?" And like I did more for her than I've ever had to do for another client since her. But it was really good practice to have because she really wanted to have a coach. Um, and she went into the mastermind and was a part of that for a while. But I remember at the time of feeling one that I'm not good enough. Like this woman was a millionaire. She had made her and her husband had built a luggage company in Australia, and she was just highly conscious. And that was really we were deeply aligned with our vision. And so she saw in me something I still hadn't yet, just like um, the bookstore owner had, and so many other people, so many other mentors of mine. And that's one of the things that we can do is to see something in somebody else. So it was really um, her holding that light for me as a coach of saying, "Hey, I know you can hold me accountable. I know that you've done the sales stuff and the marketing stuff, and you do it in a way that's in alignment with my values, and so I know that you can help me." So um, it- she grew very quickly and followed. She was very coachable. She taught me all the things that I liked about coaching clients. And just as you said just a minute ago, Morgan, my very next client was just the opposite. They were somebody who was willing, had lots of money. They would pay me, but they were very hard to work with. They didn't follow the guidance and suggestions that they even came up with. I wasn't trying to tell them what to do, but it was all of the things. And so I very quickly learned who was not a perfect customer. And then in the organic path, one of my other mentors, Jan Stringer, wrote a book called Attracting Perfect Customers, which was really about using the power of strategic synchronicity or the law of attraction in marketing. And you use it in marketing, not just for customers, but I use it a lot for joint venture partners. Um, that kind of led me into moving from coaching into helping people building partnerships. So while I still do coaching with my clients. That's not the primary focus. I work with lots and lots of coaches, and many of my clients are coaches. But the main focus is really about the relationship building. It evolved from many of my mentors hiring me to help them build partnerships. So them having an event and saying, "Hey, can you help me find sponsors?" Or, "Hey, I'm looking for stages to sponsor. Do you know anybody?" And so being a broker led into more and more strategic partnerships. And many of my teachers and mentors ended up hiring me and I led that and created a mastermind for transformational leaders called MetaMind, and where now I get to do coaching with just a few of them, but many of them get to really coach each other. And so it creates a much more leveraged model where I can make a bigger impact. Uh, where, as you know, with coaching, especially if you're doing the deep coaching, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of time, and if you want to do it at a really deep level, you can only take on so many clients one-on-one.
Yeah.
Mark, if you would, I know a lot of people are curious about the difference in the relationship between group coaching and masterminds. Can you talk about that a
Mm.
little bit?
I love that you asked that because one of our members in our MetaMind is Jay Fairbrother, known as the Mastermind Guy. You got to meet him at JVX. And he just did a 3-day event about creating masterminds and like what differentiates those things in particular and all the different levels. A lot of times people call something a mastermind. That is exactly what you said. It's a group coaching program. And it really goes by content. So, like a pure mastermind comes from Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill's book. You can add a forward to that book and call it your own. It's but that information in it is still what's kind of used for the mastermind. And so a peer-to-peer is a smaller group, usually 8 to 12, maybe 15 people at the most. Um, and they're all in kind of the same level of income. They have the same type of problems, but they're not usually competing in the same type of work. Where a group coaching mastermind has some mastermind elements to it. There might be love seats, there might be breakout groups, there might be some, mutual peer support, but you're usually still on the same path. That's either a process or an outcome. So if you're coaching, you might just teach a process, and it doesn't matter where people are; they can kind of roll into that group coaching program. Where if you're teaching an outcome, it might be okay. You're going to have your website launched within the next 3 months, but whatever that is. And so a mastermind, the idea of the mastermind is really that anytime two or more people come together, a third mastermind is created, this untangible force that really is creative and it's an abundance that is created. And if you think about if you've ever read Think and Grow Rich, the very first mastermind that they talk about, the term was coined by, they were the greediest, most selfish men in America, thinking, how can we work together to make ourselves more rich and screw everybody else? And to me, we created the word, or we used the word metamind. We didn't create it, but because it's more than just us. It's like, how do we all come together for the good of the whole? And so, really, to me, a mastermind shouldn't just be about the people in the group, but how do we all serve each other's communities? And
Makes
of
makes
course, is really how do we all learn? And there's still a guru model there where you're learning from the teacher and becoming teachers at the same time, I think.
So when it comes to your current offerings, you've got the mastermind, and I know you've got your Soulful Leadership Retreat, you've
Mhm.
got JV Network. Like what are your offerings right now?
So again, I left my corporate job on October 12th of 2012. That was my freedom day, and it took like 5 years to really figure out who I wanted to serve, and that's really the thing that I teach people now is to understand who are the people that you want to serve and what is the main problem that you want to solve, and then you want to figure out how to deliver that. And as a coach, there's lots of different ways to do that. As you said, we've got these different things. So the mastermind is one way to do that. The retreat is a 3-day live in-person event. It's our sixth one. We did our first one in 2020, and then 2 years virtual. Um, to me, that's part of my soul self-expression. It's like it's something that my wife and I get to do together, and get to be on stage together. But it's a format that's very much like I describe my brand. Day one is about connecting to who you are at soul level, so that you can step into a bigger version of yourself. You can have a greater mindset, and that when you're talking to other people, you're more authentic, more in your authenticity and alignment. And then day two being all about connecting to your soul purpose. That's about your customer journey and really knowing. Um, how you're guiding people and what your map looks like. And so other people can say, oh, I see how we can serve each other. And I can't help you, but this person over there can. So that's what day two is about, and a big part of what the whole mastermind is about. And some of those other things that you mentioned, day three, particularly about connecting to your soul tribe, is the three big things. Client attraction is such a huge part of it. And we've talked in just this conversation about you want to work with the right people.
Mhm.
And sometimes that means attracting the wrong people so you know what not to attract. And so I use the event as a way to draw people into our mastermind, into our metamind. We have about 33 people in there right now. Again, this is our fifth year running it. And one of the people that joined in 2020 is now my business partner, David Ricklin. He had created something called selfgrowth.com, BG, before Google in 1997. And I think he went full time with that in 2001 or something, called selfgrowth.com. And then together we created a joint venture directory, which was a tool used to help deliver what I was doing in MetaMind, being able to create these connections and everything else. It was meant as a software as a service, but over the last 4 years, 5 years now, has become a community of its own, a joint venture community of coaches, authors, speakers. And so it's nice to have a larger umbrella for everybody that is in the space that can be in that. Having an event where people can come to in person, and then having a mastermind where the people who want to do stuff together and to continue on over the next year, those are the people that we focus on. So it's kind of a three-part system, just as you had said, that all kind of complement each other. I support coaches. I do coaching in it, but I don't really um, promote myself as a coach.
Yeah, you're diversified now, right?
Mhm.
So, um, me and Morgan talk about this quite a bit. I work with coaches to help them get off the ground, and a lot of folks want to dive right into digital marketing. And they want to dive right into Google Ads, or they want to dive right into SEO, which, these things in these channels can work in some ways, but there are some foundational pieces. And when you're a coach in the beginning, it's my belief that, hey, you just need to find some partners and find some folks to work closely with in the beginning to have a consistent means of business and developing your program. Just the foundational piece. Can you speak about that piece a little bit, some marketing, some advice around relationship building, around networking, and finding the right referral partners?
Yeah, but you got all parts of my brain like lighting up. This is the stuff I love to talk about. Um, Being a joint venture strategist, like partnerships is just like, in fact, when I'm having calls, I'm always thinking like, oh, who can I connect you with? And um, they say to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So now I'm seeing nails everywhere. This is like what I love to talk about is building partnerships, because to me, it's so much better than ads. Like, I know people that have gotten the partnership stuff down now where they can do ads. I have people who were running million-dollar ad agencies who said they don't like working with coaches in particular in our industry, because so many of us have gotten lazy because we can use referral partnerships
Mm,
so much more effectively than ads. If you use ads, everything has to be dialed in, all the messaging, all of the, you really have to have that part finely tuned. It's not a good starting place. A referral thing, there's all different levels of a referral partner. To do like a full-on mailing, like that's a commitment, but you can really easily just do a, hey, I know this person, and being able to create introductions. Having somebody that can to introduce you to people is the most powerful way to me to grow your business. And like you said, having a few handful of people, if you're I like to use health and wellness because there's so many health and wellness coaches. If you're in dietitian, if you know people that do the physical therapy, if you know people that are doing the different aspects of it, or even fashion designers, after they lose their weight, they need to get new clothes. And so being able to understand what your perfect customer needs before they get to you and what they need after you. It's called the upstream, downstream of joint venture partnering, and being able to understand who those people are. And you only want to partner with people who are aligned with your values, because they might have the same audience, but you
mm.
don't want to work with them. There are all kinds of people in this industry where you're like, yeah, I know who they are, and everybody knows who they are, but I wouldn't want to work with them. And so that's the first thing, is you need to know your values and be able to be confident enough to stand in your values, and then find the people that do serve your audience, and understand how can you support them. Because another big part of joint ventures is it's a game of I'll go first, not saying, okay, if you do something for me, then I'll do something for you. You want to go out there and do, and I do probably 100 times more than I get returned for, but the returns that I get make everything so much more easy. Like it's very easy to send an introduction. And if I send 10 introductions and I get one back, that one introduction is very leveraged, and I'd rather have one great introduction than 100 introductions to people that are just okay. So um, it's a really important lesson of the reciprocity of building reciprocity, and so that's one of the key things that I teach is understanding what you have to offer. And we can look at like what do most partners want? Most partners want visibility first. They want to get on as many stages to get publicity, all of that stuff. And so the people might say, oh, I don't have a big list. I can't help them with that. But something very simple you can do is a Facebook Live. Anybody can do a Facebook Live, and that creates visibility. And there are lots of other ways if you have a podcast or a YouTube channel, but that's usually what people are looking for. The second thing is revenue. So you can offer commissions, you can buy their products. There's different ways to create revenue. And then there's your secret sauce, your service, whatever it is that you do. If you're a YouTube channel specialist, you could go in and offer a partner an audit. Say, hey, let me check out your YouTube channel. Let me see how I can get you monetizable. And if you can do that for your partner, they've got, oh my God, I want to tell all of my partners, all of my clients about you, so that you can go and do it to them. So for me, it's really looking at um, who your people are that you want to serve first. That's always the idea. You're creating a win-win-win. So who are the people that you serve, and then who are the people that serve them? That's how you're looking. Those are the partnerships you're looking for. And then in those partnerships, you're wanting to build a win-win. So how can you serve that partner? And then in all of those, you still want to know, well, what's in it for you? Like, what is it that you want out of it? Do you want to get on their stage? What if they could do something back for you? Is it an introduction? Because again, that might be the thing. Like, is this, can you introduce me to the person who set up the stage for you or this event for you? Or can you have me on your podcast? Or can you interview me? But again, knowing what you have to offer and what you would like to have in return makes it really easy to find great partners.
Mm.
It's really easy to answer a clear ask, right? Like when someone says, I would like to meet this specific person or
Mm.
someone like them. Do you have an introduction for me? Versus, hey, I guess I'm looking for more clients. Okay, well, if you don't describe exactly what you're looking for, no one comes to mind for me. Mark, we have a few minutes left, and I would love to hear one of the biggest mistakes you made early on with your business.
And how you overcame it.
Good addition, yes.
So there's two things. The first one that came to mind was one of our clients was asked the question, "What's the biggest mistake you ever made?" And he said spending money on ads, because it got no return. And my response to the same person asking it was believing that if I did the same thing as someone else, I would get the same results. I had mentioned that earlier. To me, that's the worst advice. And I remember doing that. There's a lot of copycats out there of saying, here's how you market, and here's how you do anything. Um, you should have the key. So to me, it's really about being in alignment with who you are, and not trusting somebody, not outsourcing your intuition or your inner guidance. And that's what I've done is for a long time, I like literally the date of our event was in 2020. Um, I had all of my soulful advisors, four of them flew into Orlando. We had a 3-day mastermind retreat together, and I let them pick the dates. They did their muscle testing and their pendulums, and it was since then that I realized I was outsourcing my intuition. And so part of that is practicing intuition, trusting yourself. Your coach is great. And if your body is saying no, don't do it, don't do it. Trust your intuition no matter what. One of my greatest mentors is Michael Singer, who wrote the book Surrender Experiment and the Untethered Soul. He sold his company for $1 billion to WebMD after making a decision in the 80s that he would follow his intuition, no matter how crazy it was, no matter how logical it was. And he would only do things that were in alignment with his intuition. So he is a great spiritual teacher as well as a highly successful financial teacher as well. So to me, that's the biggest thing is I've been practicing the intuition. And when you hear it, if you hear it and you don't follow your own intuition, the voice gets quieter and quieter. And if you follow that intuition, it gets louder and more clear, and you can just makes it easier and easier to do it.
That's wild. I think we've all trained ourselves to find logic in our thinking and chase it. Even yeah, even most recently we've done this. We're like, hey, logically, this move makes sense, but it doesn't feel as good. And I love that you just said that. So I think I'm going to, moving forward, start paying a little bit more attention to that intuition feeling. What was the name of the gentleman?
His name is Michael Singer.
Michael
He
Singer.
created
Got it.
the Temple of the Universe here in Orlando and back in the 80s. It
Got it.
also reminds me of something that's really important. I'll just tag into there, which is how that this fits into sales.
Yeah.
Because people buy emotionally, but they want to back it up with logic. So whatever
Sure.
you're selling, you really want to be able to understand emotionally what they're going to be getting out of it. But then when you can back that up with logic of saying, this makes sense also, that's how you really can not only enroll people, but help them get the breakthroughs that they need.
Mm.
Sure. And I think what's challenging there, Mark, is that going through. So I know you may not know a little bit about my background, but I worked in SaaS. I worked in software for the last 10 years, and you try to be objective in everything you do, right? Which is like, hey, it's not emotional. I feel it should be this way. I feel it should be this way. It's like, well, what does the data say? Right? What does the data suggest? And it's really valuable to have that perspective because you're making objective decisions, but it does take out a really authentic and genuine piece of you who is probably right in a lot of circumstances. I feel this way. I don't know why, but I'm pretty certain that I'm right here. And so I love that you said that. And I hope that everybody listening can take a little bit, take that away from this interview.
Mm,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Think
So
to close us up, Mark, where can we find you? Where can people learn more about you?
Well, my website is my name, markporteus.com, and from there you can find the Soul Affiliate Alliance and all the other routes, the joint venture directory as well, jv.com. I am on LinkedIn and Facebook and active and engaged and love to support people who have a mission to help other people. So I love what you guys are up to, and anything I can do for you or anybody in your tribe, I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Mark. This is um we're trying to help more coaches get to that top level of because like I've also looked at okay what's the average, right? The average has a lot of bottom pulling, right? Versus like how do people get to those top levels? And I see so many talented coaches who fall out because they don't have the business piece of it. They're just really good coaches. And this is huge. And so thank you for spending your time with us to help move forward with this mission.
My pleasure, and thank you both for having me. When you said that, it just triggered one more thing. I don't know if you know David Hawking's work. Dr. Hawking's created something called the Map of Consciousness, and especially for new coaches, this is really relevant. That change comes at the level of courage, which is a 200 on the scale from 1 to 1,000. 20 is the lowest, and that is shame. And so anything we can do to avoid feeling shame and anything we can do to step into courage will help us. And especially as new coaches, there's all kinds of limiting beliefs to overcome. But anything that you can do to step into your courage, I want to support you in doing that.
Perfect words to end on. Thank you again so much, Mark. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.